Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Wade Henderson, and I'm President and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. The Leadership Conference is the nation's leading civil and human rights coalition, with over 200 national organizations working to build an America that's as good as its ideals. Now, as we begin day 2 of the Supreme Court confirmation hearings of Judge Neil Gorsuch, the Leadership Conference continues to call on members of the Senate Judiciary Committee to vigorously scrutinize the record and judicial philosophy of Judge Gorsuch. Judge Gorsuch has an obligation, both to the Senate and to the American people, to fully and candidly answer questions about his troubling record and judicial philosophy. Now, based on our examination of the available evidence, Judge Gorsuch's decade-long record on the federal bench, as well as his writings, speeches, and activities throughout his career, demonstrate that he is a judge with an agenda. His frequent dissents and concurrences show he is out of the mainstream of legal thought. His judicial philosophy is that of a conservative ideologue who has consistently ruled against individuals in favor of large entities, including on issues affecting women, the environment, people with disabilities, and employment discrimination. Time and again, Judge Gorsuch has twisted the law to favor corporate interests despite the harm done to working people and their families. It is no wonder that the same corporate interests that pushed for his nomination are spending millions of dollars to secure him a seat on the court. They are not doing so out of a sense of altruism. They expect him to deliver. It is telling that the Republicans invited the anti-worker National Federation of Independent Business to testify on his behalf. Now, although President Trump may disagree, one of the paramount responsibilities of our judiciary is to serve as an independent check on the executive branch. Given the unprecedented power grab by this administration, it is imperative that the next Supreme Court justice demonstrate an ability to serve as that check. Now, based on his record, it is clear that Judge Gorsuch would serve as a rubber stamp for the president who appointed him. The Senate Judiciary Committee must not allow Judge Gorsuch to duck or evade important questions. The American people have a right to know precisely how Judge Gorsuch's appointment to the Supreme Court would impact their rights, freedoms, and liberty. Today, we are joined by senators and advocates who have serious concerns about Judge Gorsuch's record, and our speakers include Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, Nan Aaron, President of the Alliance for Justice Action Campaign, Michael Keegan, President and CEO of People for the American Way. And we are also joined by everyday Americans who have grave concerns about Judge Gorsuch. And they include, and they are Kimberly McIntosh, a library paraprofessional from Springs, Missouri. And Cameron Blair Hoxie, a special education teacher from Erie, Colorado. And now it is my pleasure to turn the microphone over to Senator Kirsten Gillibrand.
President of the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights, thank you for your leadership and vision and dedication. I also want to thank Alliance for Justice, People for the American Way, Center for American Progress, and the National Education Association. All of you are using your platforms and your voices to be heard on something that is fundamentally important to our democracy and to our country. I'm here today because I believe that all branches of the federal government should stand on the side of citizens that they were created to serve. The Supreme Court is supposed to be the ultimate arbiter of justice for our citizens. Unfortunately, Judge Gorsuch has proven to have a judicial philosophy time and time again that has subjugated individual rights to those of corporate rights. In my state, just like in many of yours, there are thousands and thousands of families who will be directly affected by Supreme Court decisions and the decisions they made for many years. Voting rights, workers' rights, the right for a woman to meet with her doctor without government intrusion. If any of these cases make it to the Supreme Court, they will all be decided by the next Supreme Court justice. We've all seen Judge Gorsuch's record by now. His record makes it very clear that he is the wrong choice for the vacant seat on the Supreme Court. We can't have another Supreme Court justice who values corporate rights more than individuals' workers' rights. We can't have another Supreme Court justice who doesn't trust workers to make their own medical decisions, and instead is a boss to be able to make those intimate family planning decisions for their employees. We can't have another Supreme Court justice who thinks corporations are people. And that Judge Neil Gorsuch does not belong on the Supreme Court. I will be opposing his nomination, and I will encourage each and every one of my colleagues to do the same and join me in voting against his confirmation when it comes to the floor. We all must stand up against this nomination, stand up for individual rights over corporate rights, and insist that this nomination have the traditional 60 vote threshold. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Jordan. Thank you so much. Our next speaker this afternoon is Nan Allen, President of the Alliance for Justice. I think that's right. And, oh, I'm sorry. Actually, I apologize, Nan. You are so right. Thank you. Because, guys, we have two people here who are very, very special. They came all the way in from both Missouri and from Colorado. And it would be, I'm just remiss not to introduce them and to have them come to the podium. So we're delighted. Our first speaker this morning is Kimberly McIntosh, a library paraprofessional from Blue Springs, Missouri. Kimberly?
Good afternoon. I'm Kimberly McIntosh. I'm a 13-year library paraprofessional from Blue Springs School District in Missouri. I'm here speaking to you today because I'm greatly alarmed by Supreme Court nominee Judge Neil Gorsuch's ruling record against students with disabilities. Judge Gorsuch believes that students with disabilities are only owed an education that is barely more than the minimum. I disagree. I'm a single mom, and my son benefited from early intervention special education services. As an extremely late talker, my son was identified as possibly autistic by our local Parents as Teachers staff. He therefore received 1 year of special education services intervention prior to kindergarten and 6 years of speech therapy services from our public school system. His success today is due partially to those tremendous services. I also work in a Title I school with differently abled students all day, every day. All of my kids deserve an easier path to success. Judge Gorsuch has ruled against kids like mine in at least 8 out of 10 past cases. He introduces technical and legal roadblocks, making my kids' path to success much more difficult, if not impossible. These past rulings cause me great concern. I see every day the impact that these special education supports and services have on my kids' learning. The families in my public school community are not able to access these resources outside of our public school system. My students need more supports and resources, not less. That's why I traveled to Washington and met with my senators. I wanted them to know that there's a real human face. There's real impact of these decisions that are made on Capitol Hill and in the Supreme Court. I'm so glad I had the opportunity to speak on behalf of my kids who are at school today, because someone needs to speak up for them. It is my privilege to be their advocate and do so. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're terrific. And thank you for your service. We're just glad we have you in the classroom. Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I know the floor schedule in the Senate has been crazy. We've just been joined by one of our real heroes, a leader on this effort. I want to recognize Senator Jeff Merkley from Maryland.
Well, I'm fired up. Are you all fired up? Because finally we're starting to have those conversations here on Capitol Hill to inform the American people of just who this far-right nominee is. Are we going to let him get confirmed? No! Do we want to have a judge who believes that there shouldn't be class action lawsuits because they're inconvenient for corporations? No! Do we want to have a judge who rules in Hobby Lobby that a corporation should be able to decide the health care options for its workers? No! Do we want a judge who says the LGBT community should not be able to appeal to the courts? Hell no, that sums it up. On issue after issue after issue, this nominee is a far-right nominee who's against individuals, for corporations. It boils down to this. It is the opposite of the framing message of our Constitution. The Constitution is laid out with those first three words, we the people. It doesn't say this Constitution is about we the powerful, we the privileged. You didn't hear Lincoln at the Gettysburg Address saying of the powerful, for the powerful, by the powerful. No, it's the opposite. So he has taken our Constitution and turned it on its head. And that's unacceptable because we're going to fight for our We the People Constitution. You going to fight with me? Yeah. Get the message out to the American people that this nominee is absolutely unacceptable, not just because he's far right, but because this seat is a stolen seat. It's important for the American people to know that never before in our history has the majority in the Senate refused to consider a nominee when there was time to do so. And there was time to do so last year. They took the majority, Mitch McConnell, they took this Senate seat. They said it's an Obama seat, but we're going to put it in a time capsule. We're going to send it in the future and hope that it's opened by a conservative Republican president. Is it acceptable to steal a seat from one president and send it to the next? No. Is this one more reason we need to defeat this nomination? Yes. Do we understand that confirming Gorsuch would set a precedent about stealing Senate seats that will haunt the Supreme Court's integrity for decades to come? Yes. All right, let's go and stop him. Thank you so much.
All right, Senator Merkley, thank you. You fired him up. And now, our next speaker this afternoon is Cameron Blair Hoxie. Cameron is a special education teacher from Erie, Colorado. Come on, join me in welcoming Cameron.
Good afternoon. First, I'd like to say it's a little unfair to follow up soon. I'm off like a week-old bagel or something. Okay, my name is Cameron Hoxie, and I'm a special ed teacher from Erie, Colorado. Now, I've been an educator for about 25 years. I have worked in public school, private school. I've taught at the university level, middle school, high school. I've worked in a Learning Disabilities Research Center, and I've been an administrator. That has given me a very interesting perspective as an adult on our education system. Before I became an educator, I spent 12 years in public school as a student with a learning disability. That gave me a very different perspective. Starting school in the 1960s, I was there at the dawn of what we think of today as special education. And when you look at the impact that Judge Gorsuch has had on education, quite frankly, it's sobering. Judge Gorsuch has consistently established legal impediments for students with disabilities. Through his rulings, Judge Gorsuch tells us that students with disabilities should only expect an education that is ever so slightly better than nothing. Judge Gorsuch seems to believe that students with disabilities should not receive an education that prepares them for life outside the classroom. Imagine if your daughter with a disability was told that the only education she could expect was marginally better than nothing. What if your students were told that they could only pick one legal avenue to address wrongs? What if we became a society that put up obstacles for people with disabilities rather than tearing those barriers down? I'm in Washington to personally let our senators know that Judge Gorsuch and the Supreme Court is bad for America, bad for Colorado, and bad for our students. I thank you, and more importantly, our students thank you.
Thank you so much, Cameron. Really appreciate it. Our next speaker this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, is my colleague and friend, Nan Allen, President of the Alliance for Justice.
So, you want me up there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can lord over everyone? All right, here we go.
There you go.
Thank you, Wayne, Michael, our friends from NEA. It's appreciated that you're here. You told your stories, and we certainly understand that Judge Gorsuch's record on this issue is extremely troubling. Thank you to our friends here, civil rights, public interest groups, and our friends from labor, and our cheering squad, most importantly. Thank you for being here. This president is committed, as we know, to dismantling the social, economic, political progress that's been made in this country for 100 years. He would throw to the curb consumers, environmentalists, women, children, anyone who's vulnerable, anyone at the margins. That's his pledge to us. We also have a president who is now the subject of a criminal investigation for treason, and whose very legitimacy is being called into question. If Neil Gorsuch is confirmed, all three branches are under the control of the Republicans. What does that mean? It means unlimited power. And many of the issues coming to the Supreme Court will challenge the president's actions and legitimacy. When asked who Neil Gorsuch is, a good friend of his said, he is a Republican loyalist. Should we confirm a nominee who passed Donald Trump's litmus test and become a justice for the Supreme Court? No way. When Neil Gorsuch had the opportunity to stand up to the governor of Utah who wanted to defund Planned Parenthood, Gorsuch misrepresented the facts and the law to defund that organization. He wouldn't stand up to the governor. Will he stand up to George Bush?
No.
Donald Trump?
Neither.
Should we confirm a nominee who has been picked by the Federalist Society, a right-wing group that favors overturning constitutional rights such as the Miranda warnings? No way. Should we confirm a nominee who would make it harder for consumers to sue Wall Street and hold Wall Street accountable for their fraud and their wrongdoing? No way. Should we confirm a nominee who just today refused to answer questions on torture, abortion, consumer protections? No way. Should we all stand together and call on the Senate to defeat and filibuster this candidate for the Supreme Court? Yes. So, stand with me. We're going to fight now. We're going to fight now. We're going to fight
of People for the American Way. Michael?
Thank you, Wade, Dan, Senator Gillibrand, and Senator Merkley. And I also want to thank, special thanks to these two fine educators in our country. We're really grateful for your service. So thank you. So yesterday, I think there was one important takeaway, that the Democratic senators made it clear that they were going to be asking the tough questions about Judge Gorsuch's record, and that they were going to expect full answers. And I think from what we've seen this morning, Democrats did ask the tough questions, but I don't think Judge Gorsuch did a very good job of giving complete answers at all. And if Neil Gorsuch can't say that banning people from entering the country based on their religion violates the First Amendment, then he has no right to be on the Supreme Court. It's never been more critical that we have a thorough process for whoever aspires to a lifetime seat on the United States Supreme Court. Now, the first reason is that Donald Trump has made it very perfectly clear about what he's trying to do and why we need to stop this. He said he'd outsource his selection to two right-wing, far-right groups. And he said that he'd demand an anti-choice litmus test. And let's be clear, this is not just any president. As Nan alluded to, this is a guy that we're now talking about potentially being treasonous during his campaign. And this is a president who's now being investigated by the FBI, who's attacked our independent judiciary, who's consistently shown a desire for illegal and unconstitutional power. And let's not forget, this is also a guy who lost the popular vote by almost 3 million votes. Second, Judge Gorsuch is not a moderate nominee. He's not even a stealth nominee. He spent 10 years on the bench amassing a dangerously conservative record and leaving a trail of harmed workers and injured patients and broken families all in his wake. When women and workers turned to Judge Gorsuch, they found a courthouse that slammed the door in their face. And when gay people went to court to defend their constitutional rights, he mocked them for that. But when George W. Bush wanted to defend his unconstitutional torture programs, well then, Neil Gorsuch was very happy to help. And as the late Maya Angelou told us, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Judge Gorsuch has shown us who he is again and again. And even when the law is clear, he's repeatedly found a way to twist it and turn it to get the results that he wanted. That's not what we need in the Supreme Court, and that's why I'm very grateful for the support of the senators that were with us today, and for those who are in this broad coalition that are here to make sure that we stop this nomination. Thank you very much.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, as we end today's rally, just remember we've heard from individuals who have underscored the importance of the Neil Gorsuch confirmation battle. The challenge for American democracy is to have us stand up and to make sure that we are the guardians of American democracy. I want to thank Senator Gillibrand. I want to thank Senator Merkley. I want to thank our dear friends, the teachers who have come in from Colorado and Missouri, Kimberly and Cameron. Thank you so much for being here. I want to thank Nan, Aaron, and Michael Keegan for being here with Alliance for Justice and People for the American Way. And most of all, I want to thank our supporters here in the background from NEA, from AFT, and from other organizations. SEIU, I think, is back there. Thank you so much for helping out. And guys, I just want you to join us in a chant, because it really is emblematic of what we're fighting to accomplish. When you see the hearing today, just understand that's only a part of the American scene. When we want to know what America looks like, and we want to know what democracy looks like, we turn to events like this. So tell me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Tell me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Tell me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Guys, thanks for coming out.